My unfaithful ex-wife, who abandoned me while I was hospitalized, is now pleading for forgiveness 12 years later. Hi, I am Michael, male 47. I want to share my life incident here to get some advice. This goes back to 12 years ago when I was married to Jessica, my first wife. I was married for 7 years with 2 children, Emma and Ethan, who were 5 and 3 then. We were leading a regular life until one fateful day, one morning when I was driving to my office, a speeding vehicle from the opposite direction rammed into my car. The next thing I remember was waking up on a hospital bed covered in bandages and plasters. The nurse informed me that I had woken up after 2 days in a coma. I held my doctor's hand and thanked him for saving my life. I was grateful for the new life, but little did I know about the disaster that was about to unfold. After a week of treatment, my doctor informed me that my lower body was paralyzed and I might never be able to walk again. I was shattered. Jessica broke down at this news. It was evidently difficult for her because she had to manage the house and the children in all aspects. I fell into depression, unable to comprehend my life in a wheelchair. I spent my days staring at the empty walls of my hospital room, cursing how my life had turned upside down. I dreaded how I would never be able to play soccer with my children, never be able to dance with my wife, and never be able to be free again. To add to my miserable life, Jessica stopped visiting me in the initial days of my stay. She brought the children 3 times a week. The moments I spent with my family were the only ones I lived for. But as the days passed, her visits became scarce. I pleaded with her to bring the children to visit me, but she would say that the children didn't want to meet me so often. I felt hopeless. Then one day, she handed me the divorce papers, saying, "I definitely can't spend my life with a handicapped man. I am still young and desirable. I deserve a normal man. I would be lying if I said I didn't see that coming." I sensed the upcoming separation when she started giving me the cold shoulder, but I didn't expect it to be so soon. A month after my accident, some of my friends informed me that they had seen Jessica loitering around hand in hand with a middle-aged man, probably someone in his 50s, in cafes and malls during the evenings and on weekends. Some claimed that she had an affair even before my accident, and some said that her desperation got her into a relationship with a fat, grumpy old man. After my accident, it was barely 2 months after my accident that I was yet to be discharged and was handed divorce papers. I might sound calm while writing this, but I was nothing like that back then. I was flustered, devastated, and heartbroken. I was wheelchair-bound, destitute, and divorced with no income or savings after paying for the household expenses and children's education. Savings were off the radar. Luckily, I had insurance that covered my hospital bills to an extent. I had to liquidate my savings for the remaining expenses, so in the end, I was left with nothing. I wanted to yell, smack my head against the wall, and curse my fate. I don't know how I upheld myself back then, but something inside kept me sane, probably the fire of taking revenge. After being discharged, I shifted to my parents' house. I was 35, divorced with no income, and dependent on my old mother physically and financially. My mother was a florist. She ran a small shop in the suburbs. The little income from the shop and the pension money kept her expenses afloat. With that limited resource, she offered to support me. It was the most troubling feeling for a 35-year-old man to depend on a 60-year-old mother. Soon after my discharge, I went to meet my children. When I reached my house, it was locked. The neighbors told me Jessica had shifted to her lover's house with the children. According to my neighbors, Jessica's lover was a fat old man who had been divorced twice but was filthy rich and had no children. Some even labeled Jessica a gold digger and cheap for sleeping with a grumpy old man for his fortune. I managed to get the address of her boyfriend and reached his house. When I reached Jessica's new home, she didn't let me meet my children, saying that the children had already adjusted to her boyfriend and apparently called him Daddy. She said that my sudden appearance would confuse them further. She threatened me with a restraining order when I insisted on meeting my children. I didn't have a penny to spend on a lawyer. I was surviving on my mother's meager income, so I backed off. It was less than 6 months after my accident and only a few months after my divorce. She was already living with a man. I felt disgusted. I asked her how she could abandon me and move on so quickly. Immature, I know. I was a helpless, wheelchair-bound father. What else could I do? I pleaded with her for at least one chance to prove my worth. She belittled me, saying that I was a burden in her life. I asked her if she had cheated on me before the divorce because our divorce was settled a month ago, and she was already living with her lover. She shoved me away. saying it was not my business and that I should never show my ugly face to her again. I kept staring at her, contemplating my 7 years of married life with that woman who replaced me with another man in a few months. I left the place with teary eyes. I went back home feeling defeated by the humiliation. I cried like a 5-year-old in front of my mother, who consoled me. She motivated me to take charge of my life. I was clueless about my life. I was directionless to start with. I joined my mother in her shop. I helped her make bouquets, serve the customers, and clean the shop. Sooner or later, I realized that the business had huge potential to grow, but my mother was too fragile to do it herself. I pulled out my old contacts to secure contracts with event management companies to supply flowers for events. Gradually, I built a team, took contracts for venue decorations, and eventually launched my own event management company. It took me 12 long years to rebuild my life for myself. My mother had my back all the while. She supported and motivated me to bounce back. A year after my accident, I learned Jessica was leaving the city with my children and her lover. I rushed to the house to meet my children, but they had already left by the time I reached. Before that, I tried to reach out to my children multiple times, but Jessica insulted me and chased me away every time. Jessica had full custody of the children and could decide everything for them. Since I was physically and financially challenged, I could not contest joint custody. I couldn't challenge her restraining order because I was too broke to hire a lawyer, whereas Jessica had a wealthy boyfriend. I didn't know if he was already with her before my accident, and if not, how he suddenly appeared in Jessica's life. All I knew was that he was a wealthy man with ample ancestral property. In the last 12 years, whenever I got any leads about my children, I traveled to meet them but failed every time. Jessica threatened to get me arrested as her boyfriend had the money and contacts to get away with anything. By the way, that man didn't marry Jessica even after 12 years, although they lived together. A year ago, I finally filed for joint custody. I was waiting eagerly for my event management business to stabilize. I filed for custody and finally managed to get 15 days. They are flying next week to my house. Although Jessica did her best to object to my plea in court, I hired a good lawyer who presented my case well, and I got 15 days. Besides, my children are grown-ups now, and they were asked if they wanted to meet me, and they affirmed with a yes. I know I can't compensate for the last 12 years, but I wish to spend quality time with my children. As the time is nearing, I am feeling nervous and delighted at the same time. They're 17 and 15 now. I know teenagers are demanding these days. I hope that my children are not mean and toxic to the extreme. I don't know what story Jessica has told them in the last 12 years and whether I should tell them the truth about their mother. I don't know. Do you guys have any suggestions on this? How should I approach them? I am super nervous and super excited. Let's share with the community for a couple of comments. First comment. Kudos, man. You stood against all odds. Good luck. The next comment says, I'd suggest taking it easy and going with the flow. See how the children behave with you. Let them bond with their granny. Granny's bond can help you win your children. One more comment before we go on. Don't spill the beans too soon. You'd sound desperate. See what they have for you. I am sure your ex would have manipulated the kids to the core, so be careful if they're evil. Wow, OP, this is awful. I am so sorry this has all happened to you. In times like these, we really should be able to turn to our partners and family for support. I am so sorry you weren't able to have that. You got through it on your own, and you are a strong and brave man despite the cards that were dealt to you. Thankfully, you came out alive, and you do have the chance to see your children again. This is something to be grateful for. They do want to meet you, so that's a very good sign. Just be yourself and soak up every moment you can with them. Update 1. Asterisk. Asterisk, I have quite an update. I missed 2 critical pieces of information in my original post. First, about my current wife, Sarah. Yes, I remarried a beautiful woman 5 years ago. Sarah is an interior designer. I met her at an event where she was designing the wedding venue, and we were providing the flowers. I was yet to start my own company at the time. There wasn't love at first sight, but we vibed well. We kept meeting at such events over the next few months and became friends. She was a single mother of a 3-year-old daughter. The idea of starting the event management company was hers, because she worked for one of the companies for many years and had the contacts and knowledge of the business. I partnered with her to launch the business. We dated for a year before getting married. Now we live as a happy family of 4. Sarah, her daughter Lily, my mother, and I. Her daughter was delighted to get a granny, and so was my mother. The second piece of information was regarding compensation. I was hit by a speeding truck, So ideally, I should have been compensated by the logistics company owning the truck. But at that time, the company got away with paying nothing by manipulating the facts about the accident and pinning the blame on me. I could not hire a good lawyer back then, so I didn't get a penny. You know how big companies work. They pay in bombs to their attorneys to save their backs. After my marriage to Sarah, she suggested I refile the case since we could afford a suitable lawyer. The case is still in court, but my lawyer has given us a positive hint that the judgment would come in our favor. All right, coming back to my story, as I mentioned in my original post, 3 months ago, my children were supposed to visit me after 12 years of my divorce. I was excited and nervous, but Sarah calmed me down and supported me all this while. I went to pick them up from the airport. The older one, Emma, is 15 now, and the younger one, Ethan, is 13. They have grown up to be beautiful and handsome teenagers. After the initial greetings, we ran short of conversation. It was awkward for all three of us. On our way to the house from the airport, I tried to break the ice and ask them about their school life in the city. I deliberately skipped the conversation regarding their mother. They, too, didn't bring her up. The children were unusually silent. Or maybe they were looking for an opportunity to plug into their earphones like any other teenager. Upon reaching home, we were welcomed by Sarah. The children looked shocked as if they didn't anticipate this. I don't know why Sarah was a surprise to them when their mother could live with another man within months of our divorce. Why couldn't I remarry? Sarah had set up the guest room for the children. We had lunch together, and Sarah laid out the vacation itinerary we had planned for the family. They gave a neutral reaction to everything. Neither were they excited nor did they dismiss the plan. Sarah and I were confused by their mixed response. They locked themselves up in the room, and soon after that, I got a call from their mother, Jessica, accusing me of tricking our children. She said I had brought the children to my house so Sarah and I could manipulate them. I felt disoriented by her behavior. She accused me of hiding the truth about my marriage. I wondered at her accusations. I hung up on her, but she persistently called me. I decided to address the elephant in the room. I called my children and asked them what was the matter. After the initial hesitance, they spoke up. They were mad at me because they were told that I had abandoned them. Jessica had brainwashed the children against me and filled their heads with all lies and deceit. I revealed to them the exact truth that it was their mother who jumped to another man as soon as she got the opportunity. They were kids back then, yet they remembered those incidents very well. I told them how Jessica disappeared with them to the old man's house and how she had threatened and chased me away whenever I tried to contact them. I showed them the restraining letter and all my rejected pleadings I made to meet them. They were in tears and regretted believing in their mother's lies all these years. My younger son, Ethan, admitted that once he tried to reach out to me on social media, but Jessica caught him. She emotionally blackmailed him and made him promise that he would never contact me again. The children admitted to being rebuked by Jessica's husband. Jessica and the children were mistreated at family gatherings because they were unmarried. Jessica continued to stay as a mistress in his house. Although the man paid for their education, he was never a fatherly figure to them. My heart ached as I got to know about my children's adversity. After all the truths came out, we hugged each other and cried our hearts out. We went for a week-long vacation in Florida and had a great time together. Emma and Ethan bonded with Sarah and Lily, who was turning 8 this year. I couldn't be happier seeing all my family together. My children uploaded our group photos on social media, captioning them "Happy Family." As soon as Jessica saw those photographs, she called them up and berated them for their foolish behavior. She blamed them for betraying her by bonding with us. She texted me, threatening that she would not let me meet my children further if I did anything to turn them against her. I laughed at her hollow threats and continued with our vacation. After returning from the vacation, my children met with my relatives. My relatives happily hosted them, and I was delighted to see the old bonds rekindled. When they were about to leave, they promised to keep in touch despite Jessica's threats. They said that they felt suffocated living in that house and that they would move back with me once they completed high school. I hugged them and bid them goodbye. After going back, they confronted Jessica about her evilness, but she turned the tables on me, accusing me of manipulating them against her. It's been a few months since they returned, but we talk regularly. I hope to have them back with me. I'll update you if anything develops. Thanks a lot. First comment. ***. Wow, it must feel so good to have all that on the table and to be absolutely transparent with your kids. That's something that their own mother couldn't even do. The fact that she threatened you to not turn them against her means that she's afraid of the consequences of her actions and is still unable to take responsibility for what she did all those years ago to you. Her lies meant that your children had to grow up without their father. Update 2. Asterisk asterisk hey all. I know it's been a long time since I've updated. Here has been a lot of drama in the last 6 months after my first meeting with my children 3 months ago. The impending court case against the logistics company got settled. Guess what? I got a hefty compensation not only for the accident but also for the injustices in the first trial. I am not sure if I mentioned this, but in the initial trial, the logistics company whose truck rammed into my car manipulated the case and pinned the blame on me for the accident. Hence, I was not compensated at all. I appealed again at my wife's suggestion and won. This time I gave the news to my children, and they were equally elated. They wanted to meet me, and I promised to have them back with me permanently. A month later, Jessica showed up at my office. She held my hand and asked me for forgiveness. I was taken aback by her sudden appearance. She admitted that after my accident, she turned desperate and found that old man who wanted a sugar baby. I didn't know about all these terms until I Googled it that day. The man had horrible experiences with a younger woman who ran away with his money after a few months, so he decided to settle with a not-so-young sugar girl, Jessica, who was 32 back then. Jessica had 2 children, which served as a guarantee of her loyalty. The man had stated clearly that he would not marry her and instead keep her as a mistress because he didn't want to share the inheritance with my children. Jessica agreed to his terms because he promised to feed and fund their education. I asked her why she didn't get a job. She said she had never worked and was unsure if she could earn a similar lifestyle to what her lover gave her for free. She kept saying that she did everything to protect the children's future. She stood her ground, saying the children would have grown up in poverty if she didn't take that step. I got so annoyed at her nagging that I yelled at her, saying she could have at least given me a chance to bounce back. If she was so concerned about her children's future, she should have discussed it with me instead of jumping to conclusions and deserting me without any heads up. I clarified that I had moved on and her pleadings didn't matter. She recounted all those happy moments we shared, like our wedding day, the birth of our 2 children, etc. I shrugged her off, saying I was a different person now and all those memories had faded away. They didn't mean anything to me. She crossed the line by saying she and my children were my original family, not Sarah and Lily. She said that Lily was not my daughter and that I could never have a proper family with Sarah and Lily. I felt disgusted by her cruel mindset. She insisted that I take her back so the rest of the family could reunite. I made it clear to her that I love Sarah and Lily, and they are my real family, not her. She refused to leave my office, creating a scene, and only left when I threatened her with the police. I went back home and narrated this to my mother and Sarah. Sarah was naturally distressed by this, but she is a mature woman and didn't make a big deal out of it. My mother said that she never liked Jessica because of her selfishness. Mom even said that Jessica had returned to me only because of the money I had received after the court settlement. That woman is indeed a gold digger. When my children learned about their mother's behavior, they berated her and told her to stay in her lane. I am not sure how her sugar daddy got to know about this incident, but he had threatened to throw her out if she tried to reach out to me again. I couldn't be more thankful to him. The latest update is that my children are moving in with me this month. They would stay with us briefly before I put them in a nearby college. They wanted to enjoy their college life and stay in a hostel. I believe we should remain connected, but at the same time give ourselves some space to know each other. The children have abandoned Jessica, and in the end, she is left with nothing but her sugar daddy. I hope she gets to enjoy the sugar until it turns sour. Let's check with the community for some comments. First up, I love the way you take a jab at the sugar daddy thing. Jessica is a freeloader who jumped to the old man when she got the opportunity. Indeed, she was cheating on you before she got what she deserved in the end. Another commenter said, "Please pass me the lawyer's contact. I know someone who is stuck in a similar court case. I love the way you won against all odds. Good luck, man. It's not surprising that she came back after you were compensated with a large sum. She lost her children and was left with nothing. Just as you were. Everything finally caught up with her. Wishing you and your kids all the best. The journey ahead looks promising." What do you make of all this? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you for joining us today. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. We'd hate for you to miss it. See you next time.